Hi everyone, welcome to our Colliers webinar today. I'm Lydia Ings, I'm the HR Director for Colliers UK. Last week we recognised National Stress Awareness Day, and as we are all in varying forms of lockdown at the moment, insight around our stress levels and our mental health is particularly timely. Today we're delighted to be speaking to skipper Phil Sharp. Colliers has been a proud sponsor of Phil since 2018, and we partner with him as Phil is a world-leading professional skipper with considerable success as a multiple world champion and Guinness World Record holder. No doubt Phil has experienced some form of stress during his isolated times during a sail, and today he will share with us some tips and techniques. Phil, welcome to our webinar today.
Hello, hi, pleasure to be here. And yeah, delighted to try and give you some insight on the environment I have to sail in, and which is quite often stressful under a lot of pressure, and yeah, how I try and deal with that, and yeah, be consistent out on the water and perform.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. I think we all know what it's like to be stressed. Being under pressure is a normal part of life. But being overwhelmed by stress can obviously lead to mental health problems or make existing problems feel a bit worse. So that could be feeling depressed, lacking hope, leading to impact on motivation, our relationships, our work performance. You must be incredibly aware of your own mental health, particularly when you're sailing solo a lot of the time. Do you consider this a strength of yours, or is it something that you're always working on?
Yeah, well, I think self-awareness of your mental condition is absolutely paramount when you're in a high stress environment for a long period of time, such as ocean racing. I am not naturally someone that is always, I suppose, checking up and questioning myself and taking a step back. And indeed, it's something I've really, I think, learned over the last few years. I suppose my ocean racing career kicked off about 15 years ago, but I've really become much more aware of this over the last few years. And really in the heat of competition, there can often be a lot of adrenaline, and this can quite often dampen the ability to notice your body accumulating mental fatigue, anxiety, stress, and yeah, I mean, I've had a bit of experiences over the last few years in offshore races. I've raced a total of 7 transatlantic races now, where I've learned to try and deal with that. Now, just to paint you a bit of a picture, offshore racing is one of the few sports where you have a race from beginning to end for more than several days, at least, like 24/7. So every minute of every hour in 24 hours per day, you are racing that boat as hard as possible. So you don't have really any downtime. You don't have any downtime at all. You cannot relax. You have to keep that boat sailing fast as possible. And when you're in an offshore environment, the conditions are constantly changing. The wind and the direction of the waves will always provide an environment that is quite unpredictable in a state of constant change. And you have to always adapt your boat to those changes. So if you switch off for too long, then you'll lose speed, you'll lose ground on the competition, and often the fleets are so tight that even after a couple of days of sailing, you can have only a couple of miles between the front of the fleet and the back of the fleet. So the margins are incredibly tight. Even a speed difference of 0.1 mile an hour can mean the difference of 1 mile over 10 hours. And when you're playing when you're in a long race like an ocean race, you need to make sure that you're consistent. So that consistency is absolutely key, and having a high, having a good awareness of your mental health is really important. It's one thing to be very quick at the beginning, but to actually maintain that performance and to manage your stress and anxiety over the course of at least several days is a completely different. It's a completely different thing, and yeah, hopefully we can talk a little bit about some of some of the challenges that I face and what I've done in certain experiences to try and overcome that and to manage myself better.
Yeah. So I guess adrenaline can only see you through so far, that constant having to be on it back to back. So what do you think are what are the key aspects of mental health that you're addressing when you're racing for so long in a competitive environment?
Well, I think it's fair to say that in a competitive environment, it's really important to have a strong level of motivation. I think everything roots from a goal, and your motivation really is driven around that goal, that intense desire to reach that goal, to perform and to deliver. So I think it's really important, firstly, to have a goal that you're passionate about. And something you really want, and that really pulls you towards that goal in very challenging conditions. Now, the other good thing about that is it allows you to overcome obstacles. So really like in such a fast changing environment, and one that's very unstable that we are currently living in, things are never as they appear. It's always a different route to that goal. And I think it's firstly very important to set yourself something that you are passionate about, and realize that the fastest way of getting to that goal is not necessarily the shortest. You might have to go a longer route to get there, and that's something that's particularly relevant with offshore sailing, because the wind is never as it appears, and sometimes you have to sail a lot more miles to find a winning route that gets you to the finish first.
So I guess that it's a bit like the situation we're all in at the moment, where our goals might be shifting constantly. So you have that kind of adaptability to keep heading to that goal, but in a different direction, perhaps.
Absolutely. So I think you have to appreciate that it's going to be a windy road, but there are several windy roads. There's several ways of getting there. There's not just one correct winning route, and it's very good to be open-minded and to realize that it's inevitable that you're going to have problems, challenges, obstacles along the way, and that a lot of other people are in the same boat as well. I mean, everyone is in the same boat, effectively facing those. And I think, alongside that, it's really important to stay optimistic in terms of reaching that, to stay positive. I think it's absolutely critical for results. And I think if you stay optimistic, then it allows you more opportunities to open up. It allows you to see those other junctions and roads, and that means you can sometimes get a long way ahead of the competition. So in offshore sailing, for example, if you do actually pick up on a small gain, that gain can quite easily translate into a big gain. For example, if you're in very light airs and you manage to capitalize on a little bit of a path or a wind shift, sometimes you can reach the stronger winds first, and then you can accelerate your advantage, which is really powerful. Now, the other thing I think is critical is about how you manage the anxiety and the stress that comes along with effectively being in such an intense competition for so long. The other thing about offshore sailing is, we don't have a chance to get a lot of sleep. You have to reduce your sleep to typically 2 to 3 hours in 24 hours.
Wow.
And because you have to keep the boat sailing at full speed the whole time, you can't just switch off for an hour or two. You're limited to 20-minute power naps. So you're in a state of, you're constantly battling with being on the edge of highly fatigued condition, but you have to make sure you don't cross that red line. And if you do cross that red line, then things go wrong. So that self-awareness is really important. And that sleep can inherently manage your ability to manage stress and anxiety. Being aware of that's really important. I think we're far too we can far too easily plow on with trying to work ourselves into the ground without realizing that our short-term anxiety is actually building up like a long-term stress, and that can really affect you physically and mentally into a bit of a vicious spiral. I think in short, it's really important to have that reality check.
Yeah. Has there been, I don't know would you mind sharing with us perhaps one of your lowest points, whether this was on the boat or not, and how you managed to cope with it? I think that we can all gain a lot of insight from hearing these sort of personal stories and how we can apply them to our own situations.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of high points and a lot of low points. There's quite a lot of extremes actually in races, and yeah, particularly when you're in such a tight competitive fleet. And I think that's a good example of just how close and intense the level of competition is. Was a race I competed in this year called the Solitaire de Figaro. Now, it took place in several legs around the coast of France, and they for your overall result, they add all the legs up. So it's important to be consistent over the whole race. Now, it's fair to say that I didn't have the start I wanted. The first leg didn't go according to plan. The second leg, I did a lot better, and I was lying in about mid-fleet, but I was really keen to, I was very determined to finish in the top half of the fleet. I was lying about 2/3 of the way down the fleet by the end of the second leg. So there was a lot of pressure when I got to the third and final leg to deliver. And I went into that race actually quite, it was quite a lot of anxiety and pressure on making sure that I got a good start, making sure that I stayed at the front, and then also making sure that I could ideally finish in the top 10, which would shift me up to a stronger position overall, well into the top half of the fleet. Yeah. So yeah, I think the way I got around the first challenge for that, which was at the start, I'd not had very good starts on the first two legs, and that affected my whole race performance. And I spent quite a lot of time just going through in my head and practicing and preparing the start of the third leg. And I even got out on the water and did some training early. And when I went into it, I felt, that anxiety had really disappeared because I had the confidence to in my training, my preparation, and I actually got one of the best starts I ever got. And the first 24 hours of the race, I was in the top 3. So I was either in second, mostly in second place, and it was really fantastic to be in that position. However, on the second day of the race, I found myself stranded in a windless transition zone. The rest of the fleet effectively sailed around me, and I went from the back of the fleet, from the front of the fleet, right to the back. And when you've been in such a strong, healthy position, and when you're so much on your front foot, it can be absolutely demoralizing and bitterly frustrating because you suddenly think that what could have been that strong finish is now you see almost disappear from you. But I think what I've learned over the last few years is really that when you're in such an uncertain and very fast changing environment, big setbacks can often be counterbalanced with big opportunities and big gains. And you really just never know what is around the next corner. And so you have to sort of, not pitch yourself potentially not finishing high up at the end, but really concentrate on the opportunity. Well, I think the big challenge for that is staying positive, to stop yourself getting into an area of negative thoughts. And when you have that frustration, that anger, that can often be quite upsetting at the beginning when you realize that you're now at the back of the fleet. It's really about how to it's really important to break from that, to effectively ensure that you don't continue into a negative thinking mode, which is effectively being demotivated and irrational. And that can be a number of things. It can be just effectively distracting yourself with something else. I find it great to do some breathing exercises as well to calm myself from that sort of frustration, and also to really realize that the opportunities are there to very much make a comeback. As I said, uncertain environments give you opportunity for a lot of wins as well as some setbacks. And yeah, throughout the rest of the race, I actually managed to claw my way back from the back of the fleet into knocking on the door of the top 10, and that gave me a 13th place overall out of 35 boats, which I was really happy with considering the level of the fleet. So yeah, I think it's, in order to be consistent, it's really important to keep your mind on that goal, and to ensure that you don't get into that negative thinking mode, to really stay positive and to keep looking at the big picture as well. That there's going to be a lot of opportunities around the corner.
And it sounds like also, after the first two races, taking that time to reflect and do that preparation was also, I think sometimes I find when I'm in a back-to-back day of meetings, I just need to sometimes just take a pause and think and just give a bit of headspace to be able to move on to the next. So
absolutely, absolutely, that's really important.
Yeah, give yourself a bit of a break, and also reflecting back on what worked, what didn't work, and having that moment. But it's a discipline. It's absolutely a discipline. I'm not an actually reflective person, I know, but I know that taking the time can sometimes be.
I think it's critical. I think in order to be stronger, you have to analyze, where you were weak and how you can, and then improve those. And often there isn't the time to do those, so you have to try and make time. But it's really important because it allows you to be better prepared, to reduce the anxiety, and to consistently improve.
Yeah, and even in lockdown, we can find times to reflect on a daily exercise or something like that. So great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just I wonder if you could share. I mean, I think you've mentioned some of these points, but perhaps just share your sort of top 3 tips for anyone who's perhaps not feeling at their best currently, or who perhaps might be avoiding facing realities of the struggle, or just what would be your sort of words of advice for somebody who might be feeling that way?
I think you've got to have some objectives and some milestones set that you're passionate about reaching. And it's important to have a goal, but you've got to make sure that you have some milestones to give you some structure on getting to that goal. So I talked a little bit about having a goal that you find you're passionate about, that really pulls you forward. And I think that could be really, really important now, is to set yourself some milestones on how you're going to reach your goal, and that will give you some structure, and it also enables you to keep track of you making progress, because it's not always obvious that you're going down the right path, but setting yourself some milestones and seeing you actually make that progress, give yourself still more motivation for getting towards that end goal. So I think setting yourself milestones is really important. It gives you that structure, and I think as I talked about a little bit before, staying positive is absolutely invaluable. I think you have to imagine success, not failure. You have to stop thinking about the what ifs, and you have to look at the various different opportunities. You have to think and realize you're going to have a lot of different opportunities opening up, and that the uncertainty in the turbulent environment can actually result in a quick loss, but also it can give you that quick gain. Quite often, when things seem their worst, they can turn to their best. I think. Thirdly, as I mentioned, the anxiety when that creeps in, it's very important to be aware of it, to try and give yourself a break, to try and effectively almost have a reset, and that can be complemented by actually focusing on calming yourself down, taking some deep breaths, breathing from the diaphragm. I find really good, and it almost allows you to sort of go into things refreshed, and also with a new approach and a new vision, and yeah, that's the sort of technique that I use quite a lot on board. Sometimes in the middle of a storm, when things aren't going their way, or if I run out of wind and I've got boats sailing past me 2 knots quicker. But yeah, being able to prevent that anxiety creeping in is really important to stay positive and to keep you focused towards that end goal.
Yeah, finding those small wins. I think that's the when things feel difficult, trying to find the small wins in those milestones to help you stay on track. I think
absolutely, and those small wins can be the most important. Yeah. They could be the ones that actually make the difference when when you feel like you're progressing so slowly, but everyone else is also going not quite as quick as they hoped for. If you can actually still advance and make progress in a very difficult, turbulent environment, then that can actually translate into very big gains in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think that's really helpful, and thank you, Phil, very much for your time today. I think we all need to be reminded of some of the techniques to check in with ourselves, to become more self-aware. So for everybody listening today, we hope that you can take some time to use this opportunity, take a moment for yourselves, have a think about how you're feeling, your well-being, maybe make some changes, small changes to your everyday to help you identify your own stressors, remind yourself of your goals, and what you're trying to achieve, and just not being too hard on yourself, congratulating yourself for those small wins, because that will help everybody stay positive and help you on the way to your goals. So thank you very much, and thank you, Phil, once again.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Yeah, it was great to chat, and yeah, take care, everyone. Hopefully it was useful.
Thank you.